Right. But sorry, we're just a few moments late. There's been the odd IT issue in Parkside, but hopefully we're going to run smoothly from now on. And fingers crossed on that one. But good afternoon and welcome to the Cabinet meeting of Melton Borough Council. Members are reminded that we will be using the audio-visual system this afternoon, and the meeting will also be streamed live on YouTube. Members are asked to physically raise their hands in the usual way to indicate if they wish to speak and to use their microphones when speaking for the benefit of all present. The microphone is live when the red light displays. Please switch mobile phones to silent. I will now provide a reminder of the evacuation procedure. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be on hand to assist persons who require any assistance. Public recording of the meeting. There is legislation that allows the public to film, record, or use social media at a council meeting. This must not be disruptive to the good order of the meeting, nor include any filming or recording of the public seating area. So we move on to the meeting. Apologies for absence. I don't believe we have any absences, so we can move on very quickly to the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 16th of June 2022. Now, I actually wasn't here. Councillor Freer chaired that meeting. I did watch it on YouTube, so I know the content, but I think it's appropriate if Councillor Freer moved the minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to propose the minutes of the last meeting.
And I look for a seconder. Declarations of interest to invite Cabinet members who wish to make declaration of any interest in respect of the items on the agenda for this meeting. I'll make my normal one a personal interest due to being a county councillor, and this is on record for any matters which relate to Leicestershire County Council. So we move on now to matters referred from Scrutiny Committee in accordance with the scrutiny procedure rules. So housing revenue account, welcome Councillor Child, Chair of the Scrutiny Committee, and I invite you to present your report, Councillor Child.
Thank you, Leader. The first one is the Housing Revenue Account 30-year business plan. This was considered at the scrutiny meeting on the 14th of June. And it had previously been to 2 workshops. So we have certainly given it a good overview. And I feel now that the time we spent with scrutiny and the workshops, we've got what appears to be a solid HRA business plan for the next 30 years, although we can amend it on an annual basis. So the business plan set out how the money that is available for the council to maintain and improve the council housing will be spent. It facilitates compliance to ensure the council homes remain safe and meet decent home standard. It also sets out what other improvements can be made within the budget available, and examines how the council can build new council housing in an affordable and sustainable way. The comments from the Scrutiny Committee, I asked why the asset management plan hadn't been completed prior to the business plan, and it was felt that the council would produce a better business plan if all the assets were known. However, it was explained that officers need to establish the bigger picture first. The business plan will obviously then inform the asset management plan. A member queried the purpose of Housemark, but we're informed that the Housemark provides the council with opportunities for informal peer reviews as well as benchmarking data. Concern was raised in regard to registered providers allocating affordable homes to out of area people. We were assured members that when registered providers acquire or provide affordable housing, then they are bound by the housing allocation policies, which include local connection criteria. A concern was raised regarding an over-reliance on consultants. However, it was explained that the use of Savills did provide that extra assurance and validation to the business plan. Although the cost was 4,200, which to me was very reasonable, it was recognised that in comparison to the multi-million-pound business plan, then the cost for the feedback and the extra insurance provides good value. It was commented that 20% of the housing stock had not been surveyed as part of the condition survey. Therefore, it was commented that we wouldn't know the condition of the 1/5 of the housing stock. In response, it was explained that this survey was not the only time officers obtained access to properties, e.g. the heating system was regularly inspected and maintained. It was noted that the capital programme was underspent by 50% in 21-22 and had been underspent for many years before that. But we were given at the time of budget setting that all available funds would be spent going forward. There was a discussion on garages, and members commented that garages shouldn't be demolished without the correct consideration being given to what replaces them. In response, it was explained that garages are not commercially viable. However, if a garage is let, there needs to be in a good condition, and occasionally the cost to bring up a garage up to standard outweighs the potential income. I noted the sensitivity analysis showed some wide-ranging changes in the finances. And I question if there was a change of government on the policy of a rent increase, then how would the council cope with this? In response, it was explained that the sensitivity analysis factored a range of possibilities, including the possibility that rents are not increased as much in a particular year. It was then explained that if this was to happen, then it would have a slightly significant impact on the business plan, as can be seen as part of the sensitivity analysis. But I'm happy to certainly speak in approval of the 30-year business plan, and I think there's a lot of work gone into it. I think the officers should be congratulated on what they've produced. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Child. Now, before we move on, as I indicated earlier, we're just having a few problems with the IT, as I understand it. So we're just going to have a break for a few moments while an adjustment's made. Okay, turn the lights off. Turn Michael. Oh, crikey. Sorry. Wasn't expecting that. That was quick, Councillor Child. Well, the repair work. So that was good. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to call you Bob now. I'll call you Councillor Child. Considering I first met you when you were about 14, I think I'm licensed to call you call you Bob now. Done tremendous work here. There's no doubt about that. It's a very, very thorough process. As you know, all we are here to do is to note the scrutiny report that you've made for us and to open up to any questioning that the Cabinet may have of you at all. So I look around to see if there's any questions, but it is a very, very thorough report. It looks as though you have no questions at all, Bob, on that one. So obviously the Cabinet will note your report. Thank you very much. So we move on to the Affordable Housing Development Plan 2022-26. Over to you, Bob.
Very much. We met on the same evening to consider this report. It was explained that there is currently a shortage of affordable homes in the town, and to help address this, the council is undertaking a housing development programme to increase the supply of homes. The Affordable Housing Development Plan sets out the criteria for the way new council homes will be delivered and supports the adoption of the business plan 2022 to 2052. So the meeting recommended, I queried whether borrowing for the development plan was affordable. The reply I got was that we were informed that until the asset management plan is developed, then it would be difficult to assess. It was queried, how is the council going to prevent an investment from being sold under the right to buy scheme? The committee were reassured that once a property has been built, it couldn't be sold for 15 years, and then the property would be sold at the 100% of the market value. There was some concern that the targets of the development plan were not ambitious enough and actually represent a net loss of 5 properties per year. It was explained that the targets are based on the council's ability to borrow. The development plan has to be proved as a concept before ambitions are raised. The committee expressed concern that the council are not planning to replace right to buy sales with like for like. It was reiterated to members that a cautious approach has been adopted, and it is the intention that the target 5 replacements per year would be increased when appropriate. A member did comment that there had been discussions about building affordable housing for a number of years and that there had been little progress. In reply, we were assured that it is the intention to start building replacement homes at a rate of 5 per year, but that the concern had been noted. One member commented that they welcome the cautious approach because the priority is to have enough resources to look after the tenants. They added that they want the council to have plans and fulfill them, but this shouldn't be done rashly. The comment was made that the council should be ensuring that developers build the affordable housing they said they agreed to do when their applications were given planning permission, particularly in the villages. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you again, Bob. I'm well aware Scrutiny have been working really hard, by the way, over the past few weeks. So if you could pass our thanks on to the whole of the committee. Affordable homes, yeah, it's been a massive issue for this council for a long while. To be honest, I'm quite proud that maybe my own ward, Broughton and Old Dalby, I'm looking over at the portfolio holder, possibly lead the way in the villages for supplying numbers of affordable homes. We've done really well in that parish, and I'm sure we can encourage certainly more affordable homes in the south of the area, Melton Mowbray, because there is definitely a shortage in the south there. But again, I opened a question from cabinet members. I look around. No, it doesn't seem to be that way. So we confirm the recommendation and that the cabinet agreed to have regard to the scrutiny report, and we can note the report. So thank you very much, Councillor Child. Now we move on to the draft UK SPF investment plan development. Invite you, Bob, to be invited to present the report.
Thank you. We met on the 27th of June to consider a report on the UK SPF investment plan development, whereon it was explained that the fund isn't a competitive fund, but that all areas of the UK receive an allocation based on a funding formula. The amount notionally allocated to Melton is 1.19 million. Members were informed that the funding will only be released once an investment plan has been drafted and agreed by the government. The deadline at the time of the meeting was the 1st of August. Is that still the case? Yeah. And the outcome is expected to be announced in October. The summary of our recommendations. Concerns were raised over the state of businesses in the borough and how the UK SPF is going to assist. In response, it was clarified that there are projects which are designed to bring in additional footfall, which businesses would benefit from. Members were concerned over the Bell Centre project being included without, at the time, the council knowing whether the current owner, that is the co-op, is a willing partner. The committee were reassured that officers were communicating with the owner at the present time. Members were reminded that the Bell Centre does occupy a key place within the town centre and some action needs taking as it is currently not fulfilling its potential. In conclusion, the committee did generally support the inclusion of the Bell Centre project within the plan. The committee was supportive of the inclusion of a programme of health checks, physical and mental health for farmers based at the cattle market, because there is a high rate of suicide in that agricultural industry. It was recognised that whilst funding is 1.19 million, there are a number of projects that can be carried out. Projects must be prioritised because the value of the projects currently under consideration exceeded the amount of funding the council is expected to receive. A concern was raised that regarding the people and skills theme, 3 of the 4 projects under consideration are being led by the City Council. It was explained that by collaborating with a partner as opposed to running projects without a partner, the council could see a greater benefit of return and therefore value for money. The comment was made that if the council goes into partnership, then we would need to carry out due diligence to ensure the sustainability of that partner. Chief Executive did assure the committee this would be the case. A member commented that more funding should be directed towards the rural economy and the greater bond needs building with the parish councils. The committee agreed that the council should use the funding to invest in projects and programmes that are existing, working and sustainable in order to make them bigger, better and more successful. It was also agreed that the council should direct the funding towards a smaller number of projects and work hard in making those projects successful rather than a large number of projects not so well. Comment was made that other local authorities are more successful at informing their residents what they are doing, and we must take lessons from those authorities. A member felt that the bid must include support for increased cost of living, tourism and the visitor economy, as well as rural isolation access to services and connectivity. That concludes the report on the UK SPF.
Again, thanks, Bob. Obviously, there's a lot of thought gone into this report here, and obviously you had your work cut out there. There's no doubt about that. You make many points there. I mean, the cabinet will be noting it all, obviously, for the future. But I do look to colleagues to see if there's any questions. Rob?
Thank you, Chair. With regard to paragraph 4, and the 1.19 million, and the fact that at that particular point it looked as if it was exceeding that, I think you'll find now in the latest copy that that has actually been balanced out.
Statement rather than a question.
Just one query you had, Bob, right at the start. You asked if August the 1st was still on. My memory tells me it was extended to August the 1st, wasn't it? It was a deadline halfway through July or something like that.
No, so the UK Share Prosperity Fund, the deadline as it stands as of today remains the 1st of August. We've been told nothing to the contrary. The Levelling Up funding bid was
That's right.
due to be submitted on the 6th of July.
Well,
That has been extended, though we haven't yet had confirmation of what the final deadline will be. We've been told it will be 2 weeks from the opening of the portal to submit the bid, but as I understand as of today, the portal hasn't still opened, so we await that with bated breath.
I suspect Westminster's got a lot to be talking about, maybe things, I don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, now, Bob, obviously the Cabinet will agree to have regard to your feedback, and we do note your report. All members happy with that? Oh, sorry, Alison, didn't realise you wanted to ask a question.
Thank you, Leader. It was just a quick question based on the one of the last statements where somebody had made a comment that local authorities are more successful at informing their residents. Did the person make reference to which local authorities and how they were more successful? Because learning like that could be really helpful, rather than just a general comment.
Thanks, Alison. No, I can't just recall just at the present time which that member was, but I'll look through my notes when I get home and I'll supply that information if I have it. But I'll certainly be able to find that out at the next scrutiny committee, which is in less than a fortnight. Yeah, and I'll feed that back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That would be useful, because I think I'm going to side with Alison. I don't know quite what she's thinking, but we seem to get information out there pretty quick, in my opinion. And so I can't believe anyone's any better than us. I would have thought we're going to be joint first with most others, with social media as it is nowadays, and obviously our own websites. But anyway, so obviously we'll wait to get that information. Anyway, Bob, thank you again, and to confirm the Cabinet have noted your report. So thank you very much. Now we do move on to the extension of Public Spaces Protection Order, which is called the PSPO. And I invite Penali to introduce this paper, and then we'll move on for them.
Thank you, Leader. The Public Space Protection Order Council had approved in December 2019, and this paper in front of you is about extension of it for the further 3 years as the deadline approaches for the review by the end of this year. Public space protection orders are important because they are a useful tool for us in terms of managing and maintaining the attractiveness of our natural as well as rural environment. But also it is a great tool available to the council to deal with any dog related issues within our area. We know that our residents and our communities are concerned about dog fouling in some of the areas, and this could be a really good way of using it as a deterrent to keep abreast with those issues. In terms of what is proposed here is a extension of consultation for the extension of this public space protection order, and the approval is for asking to start for the consultation going forward. My colleague David Walker is here as a lead for community safety, and he will talk about a bit more in detail of the consultation process.
Hi, good afternoon. In December 2019, the Council gained approval for the public space protection orders, which came into force on the 1st of January 2020, and they ran, or they still run now, for up to 3 years. So obviously we're in the year now where we're looking to renew the orders. We don't want to lapse that time because then it doesn't give us coverage of the PSPOs. So the council needs to consider if they can apply for a PSPO and what that looks like. So they can make an application if the activity carried out in a public place within the borough has either had a detrimental effect on the quality of life of those in the locality, or is likely to or that activities carried out will have such of an effect, or that the effect is likely to affect the activities or is likely to be present or continual nature. And the effect is likely such as to make the activities unreasonable and justifies the restrictions imposed by the order. So the council believes that we've got the evidence to apply for the extension. So we do, throughout the time the PSPOs have been in place, we've had reports of dog fouling and dog activity. Obviously, it might not be reflected in the amount of FPNs that we've had, but you would equate that to the deterrent factor of a PSPO. Because by having it in place, it shows that the council has that order at its disposal. It will put, I would think, most dog owners are responsible, but to them ones who may be questioning picking up their dog fowl, that might be enough to then make them as an incentive not to. And having that penalty in place, I think would carry a lot of weight. So if we didn't have that, I think it potentially would have a detrimental effect on our environment moving forward. So from the evidence we've gathered so far from the 3 years, yes, we haven't given out many fixed penalties, but I would say that's probably because the order has worked pretty well. So I think if we got rid of that, you may see an uptick in dog fouling incidents, and we wouldn't be able to issue a fixed penalty anyway, so you wouldn't have that reflected. Okay. So the consultation, if we get approval today, will go out on the 15th of this month. It will run for 12 weeks, and we will consult with obviously members of the public, and how they do that is we're going to have it advertised on our website. So we'll have a copy of the draft order, and there'll be a questionnaire for them to fill online. And we're just asking them 4 questions. Do they still agree with the orders that were put in 2020? Nothing's changed. It's not a different order. It's still the existing orders that we had then. I'll tell you what the orders were briefly. It's dog feces being removed. So obviously pick up after your dog. Persons to produce a device or means of removing dog fouling on demand. So if an officer approaches a dog walker and asks them to produce a dog bag, they should have the means or that to demonstrate that that's doable. Dogs to be put or kept on a lead when directed so by an authorized officer. So sometimes you get complaints that whilst you're out and about at the members in the park, that maybe a dog is going around running, nicking people's picnics or whatever you have, and we can ask them then to put the dog on the lead, and if they don't, then that could be a fixed penalty notice. And then the other one is pretty self-explanatory. It excludes dogs from enclosed children's play areas, because we don't want dogs fouling in children's play areas. It's as simple as that. So they're the 4 that we're acting to extend. We've not asked for any additional orders, because we've not been presented with any evidence to support any further orders in that. We will also consult with the Police and Crime Commissioner, Leicestershire Police in itself, the county councillors, the Dogs Trust, and any other people we feel has got an interest in the public space protection orders as well. The orders will look to come to a conclusion on the 14th of October, and at that point we'll be able to generate a report from our findings in regards to the public perception on the orders.
Thank you. That's it from us, Leader. Thank you.
I thought you were going to come in again then, Finale. So thanks. Anyway, I now turn to Councillor Freer, portfolio holder for climate access and engagement, to move the recommendation and any further introduction. So over to you, Alison.
Thank you, Leader. Just think it's important to note that this the extension is going to cover the entire borough, Melton Borough, as opposed to the town area. And this, what we're doing today is just proposing that the consultation should go ahead to extend that, and also for the renewal that will start at the beginning of next year. Obviously, it goes without saying, if we, I think I'm right in saying that we're all very supportive of our PSPOs, but if we were to be minded to refuse it, then we don't have that protection, and we can't go and deal with dog-related issues as a council, and that would be very detrimental. I'm happy to look at the consultation briefing and see how many groups of people that are going to be consulted as part of, as well as putting it on the Melton Borough website. And it, you know, looking forward to looking at what the scrutiny committee was saying about parish councils. Parish councils have been specifically noted down here to be contacted as part of this consultation exercise. So yeah, I'm very pleased. Thank you for your hard work, David, and I'm very pleased to put forward the extension of the public spaces protection order. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison. I'm very pleased to second. It's quite interesting enough, David. It's only last week, I think, I found an article in the Daily Mail. Rushcliffe Borough Council, one of our neighbours, they are going to start taking action, although they've had the powers for 3 more years or whatever it is. They are going to start fronting people up in parks, asking them to produce their bags, etc., etc. West Bridgford must have quite a large number of public open areas, I suspect. So, and that made the National Daily Mail only last week. But this council, I mean, you're right, it's 2019, you know, we've invested heavily in this, and it always creates interest. I mean, those of us who attend parish council meetings will know you can normally rely at some point in every single meeting, dog mess will pop up. Well, it will be discussed anyway on how to control it. So I suspect you'll have quite a large number of responses to the consultation, and it will be an interesting one. Only recently in my own village, we've had quite a debate. It can be found on the Old Dalby Community Facebook website anyway. It's a cricket ground owned by the parish council, and effectively the cricket club, they maintain it and they pay a low rent in hedges, and of course grass has to be cut really short. And the parish council, who are the owners of the land, they ban dogs. This has been challenged by one of the villagers, and it's turned out, having taken advice from this authority, that the lady who challenged the order was right. This has resulted in a little bit of a village barney. There's a cricket club, as you can imagine, aren't very happy. And they don't like the idea of having to play cricket with the probability of dog feces on the field. Because as we all know, if you go to pick up a dog feces off, even with a bag, you can still smear the grass and it's still there. That's the problem. The parish council are doing well. They're trying to bring sides together, and I'm happy to leave that one to them. But it did get heated. The heat's gone out of it now. But there has been a lady in my own village who's volunteered to put people together to patrol the area and pick it up for the cricket club, which is very, very noble. So members, I'll hand over to you for any comments at all. Okay, so we move to the recommendation.
Chair.
And
Can I just-
sorry.
Yeah. It's a statement again. But I do think, and I've thought for a very long time, and I must start by saying that I am a dog owner, a dog lover. But I do believe that particularly in all NBC public spaces, parks, that it should be mandatory that dogs wear on leads. And I say that because you cannot possibly hope to control a dog and know where the dog's fouling if the dog is 250 yards in front of you. I just think it's a given that should be done. I keep my dogs on leads all the time. I keep them under control. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people that would agree that, you know, that they should be able to go wherever. But I personally believe that in public spaces, they should be kept on leads. Thank you.
Yeah, over to you then, Ronnie.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's a vital tool that we have in our toolbox to deal with it. There are major problems, certainly around the villages. We don't see much of our gentleman over there in Ashford, but I'm sure he's possibly gets there sometimes. But there are major problems all over the borough. Ashford seems to be particularly have an awful lot of dogs. I don't know why it seems to have a bigger dog population than most everywhere else, but it does, probably because many people who live there worked at Pedigree Pet Foods once, but it certainly is a problem in some of the closed areas. So it's a vital tool that we have, and I support the move proposal completely. Thank you, Leader.
I don't think there are any other speakers, but obviously thank you, David. Thank you, Penali. We've put the resources into this, and it'll be interesting to see the results of the consultation when it pops up now. So we move to the recommendation of 2.1 to approve formal consultation for the extension of a public spaces protection order, or the PSPO. If I could ask you all to raise your hands for those in favour, please. I believe that's unanimous. Is that recorded democracy? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 6, a housing revenue account HRA business plan 2022. I introduce the Director of Housing Communities to summarise the report, please. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you. So this report introduces the Council's HRA business plan, as you heard, for the period 2022 to 2052. The business plan is the result of a really long period of intense work and is being considered by Cabinet this afternoon ahead of full Council consideration later this month. As you'll see through the report, it marks a really key next step in our housing improvement journey. The plan sets out how the money that's available for the council to maintain and improve its council homes will be spent. It shows that the HRA is sustainable over the period, but also acknowledges, like any other business plan of its nature, that it is vulnerable to factors such as inflationary pressures. The plan prioritises compliance, and in this context, we mean landlord health and safety, which must always be our #1 priority. And it sets out how the council can maintain a focus on meeting decent home standard across all of our stock. As a landlord, there are things that we are required to do to ensure that we have safe and decent homes for our tenants. And there are other housing improvements that are more a matter of choice, affordability and prioritisation within the remaining budget available. The policy recommendations set out within the business plan set out our approach, and you can find these at section 5.5 of your report, and they're also appended at Appendix B. Importantly, the business plan has been drafted at a time of significant regulatory change for the housing sector. And having a clearer understanding of our housing stock and the investment required puts us in a really good position in preparing for these changes. However, the regulatory changes are wide-ranging, and our focus now is very much on our preparations and ability to provide you as a Cabinet with assurance regarding our readiness for those changes in the future. The business plan shows that after meeting our obligations, there is an average annual headroom of around £796,000, which in the context of the business plan is not a huge amount of money. So we need to manage our remaining resources really carefully. That will be done through a detailed 5-year asset management plan, and that will be brought forward for Cabinet consideration later this year. And also through taking account of risks and pressures such as inflationary pressures or changes to the decent home standard, which we know the government will shortly announce a consultation on. Additionally, the business plan is really clear that in order to carefully manage resources, and we will need to look at our projects and initiatives through separate business cases on a case-by-case basis so that we can always test value for money, and affordability. This is a really positive, proactive piece of work, and I'm very proud of the team that have worked on this. We've had really clear direction and support from the portfolio holder, and we've also had that external validation by sector expert Savills, which has really helped to validate the work that we've been doing. Before I finish, I'll just say that this plan will be supported by an affordable housing development plan, which is on the agenda for today, an asset management plan, and we really will take seriously our commitments to listen to our tenants throughout delivery of the plan, as has been the case in its development. The plan will be updated annually, and that update will be really, really important. And important to note that whilst we are in a period of change as a sector, I'm confident that we can deliver and that we have the right team to do so. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I turn to Councillor Brown, portfolio holder for Housing and Land Order Services, to move the recommendation and provide any further introduction to the report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm not going to read out all of the points in the recommendation, if that's okay, but I will move 2.1, 2.2, 2.21, 2.22, 2.23, 2.24, 2.25, 2.26, 2.27, 2.28, 2.29, 2.210. All of those recommendations I move. Just really to say, first of all, could I just really thank all the officers who have been involved in this, and actually Michelle herself and the team. A very thorough piece of work on which all of the input and questions what I've asked have all been taken on board. So I'd really like to say thank you for that there. And I think we've got, at the end of it, by questioning each other, we've actually ended up with a very robust plan. But what we have here is something that is going to be required over the coming years through the new set of regulations that's been set out by the government, and very important that we as a council look after our council housing stock, because this authority without council housing stock is not viable. And we need to remember that as a Cabinet. And I think for too many years, council housing has been put to one side, and our tenants have been disregarded as not being significant. And I think this is the point where we say that changes, and they're actually forefront and foremost, because without them, we don't have a council, and that's the bottom line of it. What we have here is that we're going to look after our tenants and make them safe through having the funding to keep people safe in their homes, through being able to carry out all of our compliance works. We will carry out all our decent homes works. There will be probably some changes to that later on in through the regulations when the decent home standard is going to be reviewed and what that actually means. We'll be ready for that. We'll be fit to deliver that, because there is that little bit of headroom there, and I'm confident that we can do that. The most important thing is that we stress tested the actual business plan, and we put Savills in, and that was a request that I specifically made, and with Michelle and with Dawn, actually that all happened, and we can afford it. We can afford to continue maintaining our homes. On relation to the positive aspects is that we're going to be engaging our tenants much more robustly, and they're going to be getting involved a lot more in the regulation and holding us to account. And the further work that we're bringing in is around how they can scrutinise a lot more, and scrutinise how we're actually performing against the business plan that we set out. And thus, if you remember earlier in the year, I said at full council that we would deliver on our capital programme this year, which is about 4 million. We will continue to strive to do that, and I'm glad that we've recently set the contracts in relation to the new capital programme for 22-23. There is, however, some challenges down the line, which it'd be only wise for me to make colleagues here in Cabinet aware of. Is we've got the cost of living crisis. Our tenants are going to struggle, but also countering that, we do have some of the lowest rents for our council housing, and I'd like to obviously reassure the public, you know, it is good quality, affordable housing that we're providing. It's not, you know, we are, you know, you're talking about 80, 90 pound a week of a rent, rather than in the private sector, you're talking 150 pound a week. And we've still got the money to invest in our homes. And the other thing that we have to bear in mind is that we're going to have to work with our tenants to ensure that they engage with us to help us maintain, improve and look after our homes. And I think the frameworks that have been set out by our officers are going to do that. I fully endorse it, and I would like to thank everybody involved, and more than happy to push forward this recommendation, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Oh, so every now and then I go to scratch my head if I can't lift my arm up. But, yeah, we've gone a long way. 2019, wasn't it? November, the improvement plan came in, and we've gone a long way. Obviously, to Michelle, Ronan, both of you, it's great that we've got an absolute grip on the compliance and landlord health and safety issues that caused us such heartache a while ago. And I'm the first person to recognise there's a lot more work to do. But the HRA business plan does take us to a very new position. There's no doubt about that. And it is focused on long-term delivery. So congratulations to Councillor Brown and your department and all who work there, Michelle. It's good. Now, any questions at all for Michelle or Ronan? If not, I would like to remind you, Councillor Brown has moved the recommendation to 122, 221, 222, 223, 224, 225, 226, 227, 228, 229, 2210. All those in favour, please raise the hands. I think that's unanimous, if that could be recorded. Thank you very much. Number 7, Affordable Housing Development Plan 2022-26. I turn to the Director of Housing and Communities to summarise the report. So over to you, Michelle.
Thank you. So this report links directly to the previous one, and this is one of the mechanisms through which we will deliver the HRA business plan. As members will be aware, there is a shortage of affordable homes in Melton, and to help address this need, we've got a plan here that sets out the criteria for how new council homes will be delivered in the borough. And there are a range of ways through which the plan proposes to do that. The plan pays particular attention to considerations such as sustainability and energy efficiency, high standards of design and properties that are fit for the future, tenant safety, security and the environment in which people live, accessibility, but also funding options, the importance of business cases for each proposal, and then options to build, convert, or to acquire homes or land in the future. The plan provides a really important framework for our teams to deliver on the council's commitments to provide high quality homes and landlord services, and to do so in a planned and managed way that takes account of the circumstances surrounding us at any given time, and to do so in line with the resources available to us. So I shall stop there. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I turn to Councillor Brown, portfolio holder for housing and landlord services, to move the recommendation,
Yeah,
please, and further move any further introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, happy to move the recommendation 2.1, which is approves the Affordable Housing Development Plan 2022 to 2026, which will confirm the council's approach for the delivery of additional homes to add to its housing stock. Just to add a little bit onto this is that, first of all, it was remiss of me not to thank Scrutiny for the work that they've done on the HR business plan, and also for this. I think the officers have ensured that the members have been very well engaged, and Councillor Child has ensured that he's made sure his committee has been very well engaged. And I think it's gone a long way to getting the cross-party support in the council for the work that we're trying to do. So, Councillor Child, please accept my apologies from that area. But moving on. Fully welcome this, and just a couple of key areas that I would like to highlight is that this council is also going to use, and I've been quite critical of developers trying to forego their commitments around affordable housing by committing sums of money, etc. I'm a great believer, and if you get planning permission in a set area and you say you're going to build affordable housing, you should. And we will, through the work with Councillor Bindloss and Councillor Posnett, we are going to become a lot harder than that as a committee and as a group of councillors. But the positive thing is we're going to try and use some of those committed sums as well to try and deliver some social rented housing for people to actually be able to rent affordably, which is really, really positive. We're going to look at purchasing new homes if we can afford them, which will be energy efficient and meet the green agenda, which on the climate emergency this council adopted through our full council. And we're going to try and focus under my direction, if we can, as much of that in Melton Mowbray as possible. But we're not going to forget our rural villages, and I'm quite keen that the Vale of Beaver gets quite a lot. And I'm going to work with officers to make sure that villages to the south, so my villages have got some stuff, but we've got villages such as Somerby and Twyford and Topsatchville that could actually benefit from social housing, neighbouring Market Harbour, etc., with good transport links, etc. And I know you, Leader, will support me in that. But overall, again, I would like to thank the Director, Michelle, and all your team for a really, really robust piece of work. And again, it's stepping stones, it's building to get with, and we get hopefully to 2026 we'll have done a bit, and then we can move forward because we'll know what headroom we have within our HR business plan and what other mechanisms the government will allow us to raise funding to actually build or purchase new homes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. I'm happy to second the motion at 2-1. Just comment, as I understand it, well, what you just said actually is music to my ears, that in conjunction with the Chair of Planning and the obviously lead member for growth, that we are going to be talking to developers about taking on their affordable home lots, as I understand it. And I look to Michelle for a nod, or Penali. I don't know which one it is really, but I understand there's a deal being done with Ripon Homes at Old Dalby for 8 houses, is it?
So we've got ongoing dialogue. Yeah.
Okay, we won't say any more then. But anyway, that is exactly the sort of thing we want to have. And it is great stuff. There's no doubt about that. And because they're ready-made, as Ronan's already said, they're brand new. They meet all the new energy requirements that a new home delivers now, and more than comfortable. So very happy to second that. Are there any questions at all for Ronan or Michelle? If not, Councillor Brown's moved the recommendation at 2-1, and I've seconded. All those in favour, please raise the hand. All in favour, recorded. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8, the Treasury Management Annual Report. So I turn to the Director of Corporate Services to summarise the report. So over to you, Dawn.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. So the report's the annual report for 2021-22 on the Council's Treasury Management activities. The highlights are picked out in the covering report, and you've got all the detail there in the appendix. The key areas to note are that there was no new borrowing undertaken in the year, and that borrowing remains within our statutory borrowing limit. You can see in the report that the investment return for the year was 0.82% compared to 0.81% in 2020-21. However, because we had a higher level of balances than we originally estimated due to underspending on the capital programme, we did actually generate an extra £35,000 worth of income, and that's been achieved and benefited both the general fund and the housing revenue account. The report will go on to Council for approval under the Prudential Code requirements, with this committee performing the scrutiny function. Thank you.
I turn to Councillor de Boer, the portfolio holder for corporate governance, finance resources, to move the recommendation and provide any further introduction to the report. Over to you, Ronnie.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, members, I totally support a Director for Corporate Services report. It is very true that what they say is someone's misfortune is a benefit to others, and that appears to be what's happening in terms of the investment. We've got lots of money to spend and the interest rates going up. The results being achieved by our Treasury Management team when benchmarked against the peer group in what is still a very volatile arena and nothing short of fantastic. Their success will stand us in good stead when it comes to balancing the books at the end of the year, hopefully anyway. So I'm delighted to move the report and the recommendations at 2.1, that the Treasury Management Annual Report for 2021-22 be approved, and at 2.2, that the actual position on prudential indicators for 2021-22 be noted. Also, Leader, I'd just like to add at this point, take this opportunity of thanking David and Dawn for setting up the excellent training package presented to councillors on Monday evening. I thought that the presentation made by Carl Gurnell was excellent. It was clear, knowledgeable, and particularly perceptive. He's clearly a master of his subject, so thank you both. And that's it. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Ronnie. I'm happy to second 2.1, 2.2, but I've got nothing to say on it. You've said it already, and Dawn has. Anyone got any questions on this? If not, I ask you to raise your hands if you're in favour. That looks like unanimous. That been noted. Thank you very much. We move on to item 9, corporate performance and progress report for Q4 2021-22. I turn to the Director of Corporate Services to summarise the report. Over to you, Dawn.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So the report sets out the performance for the last quarter of the last financial year. You've got a lot of detail there in the appendix with the direction of travel as well, showing historic data. So you can see how we've performed over a period of time and what that trajectory has been, along with some commentary to aid understanding as well. You'll see in the report at 534 that we've done really well with 66% of measures being on track against targets. So that's a really good performance there. And you can see that some of the key areas are pulled out in the report. So, you know, on the people services, you can see there that the focus is on housing has been generating results on both homelessness and temporary accommodation. And also work on our own stock, as referred to earlier in the meeting, and work continues on improving performance in the areas of voids management. With regard to place priority, work continues at pace on the large scale projects around asset development, and that's all set out in the report, showing what's been achieved to date and what's planned for the future. And with regard to Great Council, you can see there that on communications, we've seen a large increase in our social media followers, which is good news. And you can see the area of performance where we'll continue to work with teams, managers and staff in improving the staff absence and days off sick there. We've also got at the back of the report, you've got information on complaints, so members can see performance and also how that dovetails with the data concerning complaints that we've received. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Every time it comes to the quarterly report on performance, I always start by saying it's hard to believe that when the chief executive came in 2017 and I became leader in 2017, we didn't have a performance report. But Councillor Brown did remind me the other day, he thought that was beginning to wear a bit thin now because, 5 years has moved on. So that is the last time I will introduce this report in such a way. I take Councillor Brown's wise counsel on that one. But yeah, it is important to the council performance. There's absolutely no doubt about that, the monitoring. And if you remember the recent internal audit on our performance and the risk framework found good assurance with our framework and no recommendations for improvement. It does show that how MBC is transparent and accountable for the services we provide. It does allow us to celebrate our successes and also be clear about those areas where we want and need to improve. It'd be remiss of me not to highlight a few things, and it was good to see that 2/3 of our corporate performance measures are on track to hit their target. Some examples to highlight. The amount of customers now able to self-serve through our website, as Dawn said, has increased. We're now over 30% of our demand being serviced through a digital channel. Obviously, a far better customer experience and certainly better value for money. In housing, gas safety checks continue to be maintained at 100%, and this is something monitored regularly alongside other areas of compliance through the new Northgate housing system. And that is the GRIP that was established 2 years ago being maintained. Our homelessness, there has been a reduction in the number of people staying in temporary accommodation each quarter, down from mid-40s to 18 in the last quarter, and also reduction in length of time people are remaining in temporary accommodation. Pleasing, but more work needs to be done, increasing emphasis on preventing homelessness, and this is a key focus for the team, and the focus has to be no homeless. Our aspirations for growth are delivering. We continue to prioritise improvements in the planning service, but crucially, more homes are being built in Melton in the last year than at any time in the last 30 years, 367 in total. A key part of supporting housing growth is an effective land charge service, and average turnaround time remains some of the best in the country at under 3 days. I think we were in the top 5 about 2 months ago, wasn't it, Ed? I think, which is absolutely remarkable. Finally, need to acknowledge the excellent work done by colleagues across the council to secure the Gold Award in the Ministry of Defence Employer Recognition Scheme. Massive achievement, demonstration of commitment to supporting all those who have served in the armed forces. Now, in terms of need of areas for improvements, we do maintain our focus on housing improvement. We'll continue to work, bring long-term voids back into stock and improve turnaround times, despite the challenges in the supply chain and sector more generally. We also reiterate our commitment to deliver on the Decent Home Standard, and I'm delighted tonight we will be recommending our new HRA business plan to Council for approval. Environmental quality is a key issue, and we can see that fly tipping has increased, but is an area of focus, and the Public Spaces Protection Order consultation on the agenda, which we've already discussed, will support us taking action to tackle environmental crime. So all in all, it's a pretty comprehensive and helpful report. It does ensure we're maintaining grip on the areas that are most important to our residents, and particularly pleasing that in the areas where we need to improve, we have some proposals and decisions on the agenda this evening to move things forward. I look for a seconder for my recommendation. Councillor Graham. Any questions from anyone at all? Oh, sorry, over to you, Councillor Graham. Okay, you raise a good point, and obviously Chief Executive noted that, and I'm sure that will be easily rectified for next time. But as you know, there has been printing difficulties, but hey ho. Any other questions at all? Otherwise, we'll go straight to the vote because I've moved the recommendation at 2-1, seconded by Malise. If not, to the vote, all in favour, raise your hands. Unanimous, democracy noted. Thank you very much. Item 10, housing revenue account, HRA 2021-22 provisional year-end position. Hand over to Director for Corporate Services to summarise the report. Over to you, Dawn.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So the accounts for 2021-22 have been published in draft form, and we've yet to be notified of the date of the audit. So the figures in this report remain provisional until after that audit's been conducted and finalised. The regulations this year do require the audited accounts to be published by a later date of the end of November, but we still haven't had the date agreed for the audit of those accounts. And just to make you aware as well that we're only just having the audit completed for the 2020-21 accounts. So they've still not been published as audited accounts in their final form. And just really to remind members that this is a national issue as a result of external audit resources. So it does remain very challenging to try and get outturned figures out when you still haven't finalised your accounts for the previous year. The report compares this provisional outturn with the original budget that was set at the rent setting meeting in February 2021, as well as the latest approved estimate, which incorporates in-year approvals. So you've got all the detail there in Appendix 1, along with budget holder comments on significant variations, and that's defined as anything where there's a variation of plus or minus £10,000. You'll see that the overall position is an underspend against approved budget of 695,000, of which 150,000 is being carried forward into the new financial year. The underspend is primarily due to a large underspend on repairs and maintenance, and also vacancies, and that was offset to some extent by reduced income from voids. You'll see the impact on the reserves is set out in 5.5. And then we go on to show what the outturn is against the capital programme later on in the report. I think with regard to capital and revenue, it should be remembered that the budget was based on the old HIP programme. And when we start to work through the asset management plan later on in the year, the budget for next financial year 23-24 will be based on this new asset management plan, which we'll be working on over the summer following hopefully the approval of the business plan at council meeting later this month. And I think it's important to note that will provide a much more accurate position financially and much more accurate financial planning against which actuals in the future can be monitored and performance assessed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dawn. I turn to Councillor Ronnie DeVille, Portfolio Holder for Corporate Governance, Finance Resources, to move the recommendation and provide any further introduction to the report. Over to you, Ron.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, members, as outlined by a Director for Corporate Services, this is a comprehensive and wide-ranging report. However, the key parts that I just want to bring forward is we now have the HRA business plan, and work is due to commence on the asset management plan. Together, moving forward, these two will inform both the revenue and capital budgets. I offer my compliments to everyone involved for the hard work that's gone into getting these, or getting certainly the business plan in place and working on the other one. This is an important step in seeing the end of a budget based on HIP, as Dawn mentioned, and the start of a true financial planning based on real quantifiable data from stock condition surveys and tenants consultations. By its nature, the provisional outturn and accounts are backward looking, and whilst it's pleasing to see an underspend and that the reserves and balances have been boosted, I'm more excited by the opportunities offered by the more informed and accurate budgets, a platform on which the financial and business performance can be more accurately assessed. Chairman, I'm pleased to move the recommendations at item 2.1 of this report, which is that Cabinet notes the provisional year end position variations to the 2021-22 approved year end position and the resultant effect on the Council's balances and reserves for the HRA as set out below or within the report and in the attached papers for both revenue and capital. Thank you.
Thank you very right. I'm very happy to second 2.1. Just point out to Cabinet colleagues that it is to note the report only. Any questions? No. So everyone happy to note the report? Yep. Thank you very much. We move on to item 11, the cost of living support in our community. So I turn to Director of Housing and Communities to summarise the report. Over to you.
Thank you. So we know that increases in costs such as fuel, energy and day-to-day living costs are already impacting on our households, and that's really only set to get worse. As a council, we take our commitments to support our communities really seriously, and there are things at times that require our focused attention and proactive approach, and this is one of them. I'm really proud that from the outset, our teams have really pulled together to look at how we could best support our communities to ease financial pressures at a time when they need it most. This report provides an initial overview of the things that are currently in place and sets out what is proposed over the next 3 months as part of a corporate cost of living action plan. To guide our plan, we've taken time to consider what we're concerned about and who may be most affected by the cost of living pressures. This is not an exhaustive list within the report, but shows consideration of two things really. Firstly, at-risk groups, but then really importantly, those situational risk factors that we know will be impacting on our communities as well. Really important to note that this plan is a live document, and that is that we need to be proactive, we need to be agile, we need to be flexible to respond to what we learn and what we know about the impacts on our communities. And we've taken time to look at opportunities to build some real-time understanding about what's happening for our residents. We are treating this as a piece of corporate work that spans a range of teams, and we're linking with a range of partners. And tomorrow we're meeting with our Helping People partnership, a range of stakeholders to talk about our plans and how we can work better together. Our plan has 3 themes, as you'll see set out in the report. The first one is around insight and evidence. So yes, we can look at reports and data, but actually hearing directly from our residents about what's happening for them right now. We've done some work using our customer feedback tool, GovMetric, which is providing some really valuable data and insight for us from which will shape our plans. The second is around communication and information, including a communication campaign that will be really carefully branded and really promoted in as many places as we possibly can through the web and other documentation. And this is really about helping residents find and access support. One of our reflections is there's a lot of support that we can provide, but people wouldn't necessarily know where to find all the different pieces of information, and we need to try to pull that together through a single place. And then finally around supports, and this is really about ensuring that households know that we can help them and know how to access that support and that they can access it when they need it. And as you'll see from the report, I'm really pleased to see that that proactive approach is already leading to people being supported at a time they need it most. So section 5 of your report this evening covers some of the things that we've already done or some of those things that are underway. And it also sets out what we will be doing next, including how we might link our cost of living response with our draft UK SPF investment plan, which is on the agenda later this evening as well. It is proposed that we provide a further update in October, and in between we'll provide a full member briefing and a briefing to stakeholders and parish council colleagues. I should stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I turn to Councillor Graham, the portfolio holder for People and Communities, to move the recommendation and provide any further introduction to the report. Over to you, Louise.
Thank you very much, Leader. We all know that times are hard for many households in our borough, and I think that we all agree that things are likely to get worse, especially with the energy price cap increase later this year. As a council, we take our responsibilities seriously, and this, our cost of living plan, is an example of this. We know our limitations in being able to deal with the national cost of living crisis, but I'm pleased that we've been proactive in putting together a plan and response that can provide some help to households across our borough at a time when their budgets are going to be stretched. Our plan looks constructively at what we can do now and into the future. It is so important that we communicate this plan effectively and that every household in our community knows that this help is available, and especially that there is no shame in asking for it. We are communicating with stakeholders, tenants, parish councils, but we welcome any further input from them and any others who have a view on how our response can be made even more meaningful. Our teams at this moment, making use of funding and grants to support households, such as the Household Support Fund, with over 270 referrals to this fund between the end of May and the end of June. We can see the value of being focused and proactive in supporting our communities. Our case management team really do deserve our unlimited thanks in all they do. They've been so successfully proactive in distributing £150 energy rebates, and their attention is now turning to implementing our discretionary scheme, after which we will have a small but much needed hardship fund managed by a panel to consider exceptional cases. In the future, it is pleasing to see the proposed community supermarket as part of a UK SPF draft investment plan. Working collaboratively with the voluntary and private sector partners, this will help us to provide a solution that can support households to access food and other essentials in an affordable way. We will continue to help people out of crisis and to prevent or reduce the demand on food banks. And this plan will risk the people, that hopefully reduce the risk of people falling into hardship and having nowhere to turn. Just to confirm, this is our initial plan. It will evolve as things change, and myself and our officers will welcome any suggestions, but during that continuing evolution, we'll make it even better. So thank you for that, and I have pleasure in moving recommendations 1 and 2 to 1 and 2. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graham. I haven't been in the supermarket for about 8 weeks, by the way, and I went in the other day and I was absolutely staggered at the prices I've seen on the shelves. It's unbelievable in just an 8-week period. And there's one item I can remember I was buying at £4.30. It's now £5.70. That's the sort of rises that's going on, and it is really scary. But one thing we can be pleased about is this council, because as you're well aware, we work across Leicestershire and also with the county. But we were, because of Councillor Brown, it was his initiative, I remember, really, that started it. We said we've got to do something about the cost of living some months ago. And Michelle and the team really picked it up and ran with it. We've had a great start, there's no doubt about that. And I'm really proud to say that to everyone in this borough, how well this council's done on the cost of living, given, you know, our limited resources we have. But we've done a superb job. And Dawn's department getting the money out from the government, absolutely fantastic, there's no doubt about it. I haven't had a single complaint, by the way, about that. So anyway, so it's all good stuff at this moment in time, but still a long way to go. They tell me inflation is going to start dipping in the spring. That's what the experts say, but who knows? Who would have dreamt we'd be heading for, this time last year, we'd be heading for 11% inflation. And that is massively scary, but it's on its way by the looks of things. So very pleased to second that. Now, has there anyone got to make a? Councillor Brown's got a comment.
Yeah, just a few things really to note, and thank you, Councillor Graham, for bringing this forward with the officers. I think first and foremost, I think is that you know, it's a sad indictment of society, and especially of the 5th richest country in the world, that we've actually got people who need food banks and need money, etc. And I'm not going to shy away from that. And therefore, I'd like to ask Councillor Graham, would he join me in us writing to our MP and to the Secretary of State, Greg Clark, and actually reiterate our concerns about why we feel the government need to do more to help people, if you would be willing to do that.
We'd be very happy to do that, but I don't know which Secretary of State we will write to, but it'll be sometime in September.
Well, at the moment, it's Greg
Clark,
Clark, so we can write to them together if that's okay. The other thing is targeting the right people, and I think for one example, I noticed looking through the regulations that those living in HMOs aren't eligible for the council tax rebate, and whether we're looking at those people to see if through our discretionary fund we could help people. People living in HMOs are more likely to be on lower incomes, are more likely to be struggling financially, and probably have other social issues. So it won't just be around money, it'll be about the intervention of other services that those individuals may need. I obviously welcome the local supermarket idea, but as Councillor Ocean just said, you know, if prices keep going, we're going to need more and more of it. And today I was listening to LBC, which I do on my travels around the country, and Martin Lewis was on it saying that we could be heading for warm heat banks, where basically we'll need to use public buildings. I hope we don't get there. And I hope that we can do something as a society to help. And I know that the work that we're doing is, you know, absolutely brilliant, but we're going to have to ramp that up, etc. And finally, the one thing that I have said, and I have talked to the Director of Communities, is that as we probably look at inflation busting rent rises and probably other rises, my commitment is that, working with yourself, Councillor Graham, is that we will look at how we mitigate any significant impacts that we may have to do, but we have to recognise also we do need to look after the business of looking after our properties as well. So we have that difficult balance, but really supportive of what's going on. Absolutely fantastic. We had a report yesterday, an email from the director who said, you know, what we're doing compared, not necessarily as a competition, but it just shows the proactiveness of the teams in not just the money that's going out to people, but also the support, etc. And basically, that's what we're all about, isn't it? And thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Round, that's exactly why we're here. And like I say, for a small council, we're doing a phenomenal job, no doubt about that. Any other comments to be made from anyone? If not, Malise moved the recommendation at 2122 and I second it. All those in favour, please raise their hands. Unanimous, noted by Democracy. Thank you very much. Item 12, 5-year housing land supply and housing trajectory. I turn to local plans manager to summarise the report.
Thank you. So this is a annual report that we bring to Cabinet to update you on the housing land supply that we can justify that we have as a borough against the local plan and the housing that's been delivered in the past year. So the report this year and the accompanying appendix shows that we're in a good position. We can now demonstrate 8.4 years of housing land supply against the government requirement.
Is mine working? There we go.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, we're in a good position. We have 8.4 years of housing land supply against the requirement of 5 years that's set out by the government. You'll see that we've done some sensitivity testing that as we've done in previous years, so that we have, or we're happy that it has a robust assessment of the position, and that's in 4.6 to 4.10 of your report. And there's a graphical representation of that at 4.10, which is on page 205 of the report pack. You'll note that the figure is lower than the trajectory last year. We had somewhere in the region of 11 years of housing land supply last year, but that is because our trajectory is a step trajectory. So we have a lower target for housing earlier on in the plan, and then it steps its way up as the years go by. So we're starting to get to the much higher amounts of housing now that are required in the latter years of the plan. So that's why the figure has dropped down. So some further good news. Last year, we delivered 365 homes, and that's against the target of 245. So this is the first year that we've had that higher target, whereas previously it was 170. So we've not only met, but surpassed those required numbers to be delivered. Oh, okay. Yeah, so 365 homes that have been delivered against that target of 245. As you're aware, the local plan covers the period of 2011 to 2036. And actually, this is the first year since 2011 that we can demonstrate a cumulative surplus of homes. So that's the shortfall of homes that was identified between when the plan was first started, 2011, up to the end of it. And then we distributed that equally across the plan. So we've actually now delivered a surplus, which is fantastic news for the borough. So you'll note that that's the most homes that have been delivered in any financial year in the last 30 years. And we also continue to pass the housing delivery test with a result of 197% that we're predicting for the last year. So the local plan is continuing to perform as we want it to, and that full assessment report at Appendix A shows the full methodology and approach. And therefore, we're asking Cabinet to approve the publication of the report onto the local plan's website.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I'll turn to Councillor Binlos now, saying we've got such a large agenda and he's got the largest portfolio. And here we are, Rob, you're right down towards the rear end of the meeting, but finally you got your opportunity to move the recommendation and provide any further introduction to this good report.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's all been virtually said, you know. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to sit here and have such positive item to recommend. And this is definitely one of those. And I think if you look at some of the figures there, the fact that we have 8.4 years of housing supply, and that's hit the kind of 5-year figure that we hope to get to, is quite fantastic, really. And the graph that was on page 206 that Sarah mentioned clearly shows it's quite graphic to see that and to look at it and think, you know, this is how we've actually done such a good job, and it is excellent that we've done that. Again, the fact that we've managed to deliver 365 homes and that 49 of those homes are affordables, you know, that's quite a decent chunk. And is certainly going to help us. There really is very little to say other than, you know, the success of this is quite brilliant. I believe that we should note our thanks to officers and colleagues within the development management for progressing applications, which has in turn allowed the increased figure of developments to be built in a timely manner and enable the delivery of these. With all that said, and that's not much, but I would like to recommend that we approve 2.1 and note 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4, Chair.
Thank you very much, Rob. Yeah, I'm very happy to second 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. I think it was Ed said, well, it's working, isn't it? We've just built the most houses for 30 years, so it's working. So simple as that. Members, anything else to say? No. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Unanimous, be noted. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 13, Leicester and Leicestershire Statement of Common Ground on Housing and Employment Need. I turn to Local Plans Manager to summarise the report. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. So we're all quite aware that Leicester City Council declared back in 2017 that it had an unmet need for both housing and employment land, but it's only recently been quantified. We've been working together with the Leicester and Leicestershire authorities since that time. So that's now been quantified at around 18,700 homes and 23 hectares of employment land, and that's up to 2036. That 18,700 homes includes the 35% uplift, which was applied to the standard method for the 20 largest cities and urban centres in England, for which Leicester is one, which set us back a little whilst we were doing some further evidence on that. So the Leicestershire and Leicester and Leicestershire authorities have been working together for a number of years to deal with these unmet needs in order to comply with the legal duty to cooperate. And you may well recall that Melton Borough Council were a signatory to a statement of common ground with the other authorities in June of last year that set out the process for us apportioning those unmet needs and the evidence that would be required. The report provides all of the background information relating to the statement of common ground between the Leicester and the Leicestershire authorities to demonstrate that the duty to cooperate in plan making has been met, and the substantial evidence base has also been published supporting the statement of common ground, which includes the housing and economic needs assessment, the housing distribution paper, the employment distribution paper, and the statement of common ground sustainability appraisal. Melton was proactive during the preparation of its local plan in acknowledging that Leicester City's unmet need would need to be dealt with in the coming years. And although the numbers at that point weren't known, we were preemptive in choosing a higher housing number at the time of the plan's inception, which was both in anticipation of this and being ambitious for the borough and its future investment in terms of items such as the MMDR, the Melton Mowbray Distributor Road. Consequently, we consider that Melton's in a strong position to fulfil its requirements under the duty to cooperate without undermining the existing adopted local plan. The evidence demonstrates that Melton needs to deliver a further 69 dwellings per annum towards Leicester City's unmet need up to 2036. And we're confident that the housing land supply that we have, as discussed in the previous paper, and that trajectory can deliver this within the existing housing allocations that we have. Melton is not being asked to accommodate any of the employment unmet need. Charnwood Borough Council are content that they can accommodate all of those unmet employment needs that have arisen from Leicester City, and that's circa 23 hectares. However, the Housing and Economic Needs Assessment, the HENA, has confirmed that Melton will need to find a further 10 hectares of employment land to meet its own needs up to 2036. That is over and above the allocated employment sites in the plan. So that will be picked up during the local plan review. But we are confident, and we have taken a look at the sites that we have, and we know what's coming forward, and that we will not need to declare our own unmet needs relating to employment land. You'll see that the distribution of the development has been subject to sustainability appraisal, and we are happy that that represents a robust methodology for the apportionment. We consider it's important that Melton Borough Council signs a statement of common ground to allow the progression of all of the local plan work across Leicester and Leicestershire, and to ensure that plan development continues across the housing market area.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I turn to Councillor Binlos, Portfolio Holder for Growth and Prosperity, to move the recommendation and provide any further introduction to the report. Over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, I think that Sarah has very eloquently said pretty much all there is to say about this. What I would say is that, you know, it shows that we are a progressive and a forward-thinking council. And I think that there's no clearer way of looking at that when you actually consider and listen to, you know, where everybody else is with this. I think it's really showing and telling that we are in such a good, strong place, and this is something that was thought of and considered and conceived years before. And I really do think that it's put us in a very comfortable place. But nonetheless, saying that, one must always be mindful of the fact that issues and things can change from time to time. As I say, you know, I think everything that Sarah said is covers the thing completely. But you know, I do think that it's important, and I'm absolutely convinced it's important, obviously, that Melton Borough Council signs the statement of common ground to allow progression of local plan work across Leicester and Leicestershire authorities, just to ensure that the plan development across the housing market area goes forward. And I think with that said, I'd like to recommend members that Cabinet approves 2.1, signing of Leicester and Leicestershire's statement of common ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. I'm very happy to second 2.1. Has anyone got anything to say on this? All those in favour, please raise a hand. Unanimous, noted. Thank you very much. Move on to item 14, General Fund Revenue and Capital Outturn 21-22. Turn to the Director of Corporate Services to summarise report.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Dawn.
Yeah, so similar to the report you had earlier, but this time the general fund, and again to reiterate that the position remains provisional until the accounts have been audited. So again, the report shows a comparison of that provisional outturn to the latest approved budget, which is the original budget set in February 2021 when council tax was set as updated for supplementary estimates and carry forwards. You'll see in the report that after allowing for various movements in the reserves and carry forwards amounts approved by the portfolio holder under delegation, there's an underspend on general expenses of 94,000. And this underspend has only just arisen due to the prudent decision to carry forward a COVID contingency of 162,000 from underspends in 2020-21. And members may recall, following the Local Government Association Financial Resilience Review, that a new target for the working balance of 1 million was agreed, and Council approved that any underspend from 21-22 be added to the working balance to aim to get to that new approved level. As this 94,000 underspend is less than that estimated and reported to Council in February, when the council tax and budget was set, where an amount of 230,000 was estimated, it is recommended that during 22-23 a further amount of 116,000 be moved from the corporate priorities reserve to the working balance to result in a new balance of 850,000, with the remaining amount required to reach the new target of 1 million be considered further when the budget for 23-24 is set. The significant variation in the provisional outturn to those budgets within budget holders' control is set out in Appendix A, with the significant ones set out in the report. A separate table is set out in the report showing the financial impact in the last financial year of the pandemic. And this shows the net cost to the council after specific COVID grant funding of £312,000. And when you take into account the final unring-fenced tranche 5 COVID funding and the contingency carry forward from the previous year, this results in a surplus of £50,000, which is contributed to that overall underspend of 94,000. Members should note this will be the last time that we will report specifically on the COVID financial impact, as we now mainstream in all of those impacts as part of the main budgets, and that will be reflected in service costs, etc. For special expenses, Melton Mowbray, there's an overspend of £11,000 for the year shown in the report, and when you take into account approved carry forwards, that rises to £28,000. The impact of the provisional outturn on the key reserves is set out in the paragraph of 441. And this shows that the corporate priorities reserve has remained relatively stable, with the regen reserve starting to be used for non-recurring items in support of priorities as intended. There is still some capacity within that reserve to fund other initiatives. You'll see as well that the business rates equalisation reserve is at a rather healthy level, and there could be some scope to release some of this funds elsewhere for other areas of the business. But business rates remains a difficult area to predict, with impacts felt over more than one financial year. And it should be noted the collection fund has ended the year in a deficit position, which we'll need to address using that reserve. The level on that reserve will be considered further when we set the budget for 23-24. With regard to special expenses, Melton Mowbray, the reserve there will be under pressure as members start to consider the need to extend or build a new cemetery. With regard to capital, you've got a report on the progress on the capital programme in the report, and you'll notice that there has been some underspends and the portfolio holder has approved carry forwards into the new financial year. A large proportion of all that spend is externally funded, but any of those minor underspends from the council's own resources will be added back to the reserves as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dawn. Excuse me. I turn to Councillor de Burgh, portfolio holder for corporate governance, finance and resources, to move the recommendations and provide any further introduction to the report. Over to you, Ronnie.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you, Dawn. Members, as you've heard, this report represents a comprehensive overview of where we were at the year end. You'll see from the table at 411 that we've ended the year with a very small underspend, and it's always welcome. news when we achieve our objective, as we have there. However, it's been by the skin of our teeth, as they say. We must take note that this was only possible because of the prudent decision taken this time last year with a general carry forward of 162,000 from the previous financial year's COVID contingency reserve, as mentioned by Dawn a few moments ago. Had we not taken that decision based on recommendation, we would have been in an unacceptable overspend position right now. You could, of course, say, but of course, that is exactly the kind of recommendation that our professional team should be advising us to take. And you'll be quite right. Unfortunately, the message is deeper than that. Our position is and remains precarious, to say the least. We need to continue to take such prudent decisions until the council's finances are certain. One such example, which I would like your support on, is to approve a boost to our resilience by increasing the working balance. This also mentioned by Dawn. This would greatly assist in our flexibility in meeting unexpected challenges. I know it's difficult when the review of local government finance is much talked about, and not much seems to be happening. There is nothing happening on that front at the moment, and there is so much we want to do in our borough, and we need to be prepared for it. Clarity is emerging over some of our income streams, with car parking income now stabilising at circa 20% reduction on pre-pandemic levels, and putting serious pressure on our other service areas. We did well in the financial settlement this year, which enabled some non-recurring activities to be funded and reserves to be boosted. However, we need certainty so we can invest confidently in ongoing projects and activities. An assessment of the inflationary pressures on the council's finances is underway. This will feed into a high-level review of our medium-term financial strategy. We know that there will be a 2-year settlement covering 2022, 23, 24 and 24, 25, but we have no detail, which of course creates even more uncertainty. And until we get that, we need to continue to exercise restraint. Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to move this report and the recommendations at 2.1 and 2.2, which are, excuse me, the Cabinet, I think I'm on the wrong one here, actually, 15. Yes, it's 14. I've changed the page over. I do apologise. Got the wrong recommendations. Won't be a moment. Okay. Okay, the Cabinet. Okay, so I'd like to move on the recommendations at 2.1.2.2. They are that Cabinet note the provisional year end position variations to the 21-22 approved budget and the resultant effect on the council's balances and reserves for the general fund and the special expenses as set out within the document and in the attached appendices for both revenue and capital. And 2.2, that 116,000 be transferred to the 2022-23 from the corporate priorities reserve to the general fund working balances to bring the level, as Dawn has already mentioned, to 850,000. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ronnie, and I'm very happy to second you at 2.1.2.2. I turn to members. Any indication want to speak or queries? If not, we go straight to the vote. Those in favour, please raise their hands. Unanimous, democracy recorded it. Thank you very much. We move on to item 15, the draft UK SPF investment plan development. I understand Lee Byrne is online. Who's going to introduce this paper?
Yeah, I'm here, Chair.
Oh, yeah, got you, Lee. Thank you. Obviously, we'll ask you to introduce the paper then, please, Lee.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as the covering report suggests, a lot of work has been underway since the UK SPF was announced, and I'll just draw out some key points from the report today for members to consider. So, just by way of a bit of background, the UK SPF is basically a key element of the government's Levelling Up agenda. It's non-competitive, so we have an allocation that we essentially have to develop an investment plan for. That investment plan requires us to identify how we will best spend £1.19 million worth of funding over a 3-year period up until March 2025. The fund can be used for a mixture of capital and revenue projects, and that every year that it's in place, there is a minimum requirement for capital, and there are 3 overarching investment priorities identified under which we have to kind of slot all our relevant interventions. They're community in place, supporting local business, and people and skills. We have fairly large scope to do what we want in order to meet best local need. Aside from under the people and skills theme, where there's a slight nuance in regards to the fund only being able to support projects in the first and second year that are essentially extending currently European socially funded projects. As well as this, the councils are entitled to allocate 4% of this overall amount of funding, so around £47,600 worth of funding over the 3-year programme. As you can probably understand, that's not a huge amount to monitor, evaluate and manage these programmes over that period. And government have recognised this, and for smaller allocations and smaller councils, we can request a higher proportion of the funds to be allocated towards this, and we plan on doing so throughout this programme. And we're looking at approximately 8% of the total allocation, so just over £95,000 towards that. Key areas that we've had to kind of consider throughout the development of this plan is that the plans have to be evidence-led. They have to link to national and local strategies, and one of the key requirements is a wide stakeholder engagement. The stakeholder engagement within Melton has been significant. We've had working groups with scrutiny, with all member briefings, and with partners across the board. This feedback has been fed into and informed by an evidence base, which consists of over 100 data sets of quantitative data, and combined with that quantitative data, that's what's enabled us to develop this draft local plan, which we believe best meets local challenges. As you will be able to see from Appendix 2, the plan has been updated since the last scrutiny meeting to take on some of those points, some very, very, very valid points on board. I won't go through exactly what they are, as that was very succinctly discussed by Councillor Childs at the start. But where possible, we have taken those on board, and the draft plan now adheres to our expenditure over the 3-year period and identifies the revenue and capital split, as well as taking into account some of the key things that scrutiny felt were important around the inclusion of potential parish liaison in there as well as part of a wider community project. So obviously some of the themes that have borne out and that you'll see reflected in the draft plan around rural connectivity issues, not just physical, but also digital, including access to services and rural isolation, youth engagement, and also kind of how we best support our young businesses whilst also attracting inward investment into the area. And when we talk about inward investment, we mean in the most holistic sense, so businesses and visitors. As well as that, as has been discussed earlier and was mentioned by Councillor Graham, support to help people with the cost of living crisis, which is key as well. So in regards, as I've previously mentioned, there's been a fair bit of consultation that's taken place. One of the key updates for members at this meeting, which I'm having to provide verbally, is that we, as part of this project, we have to develop essentially a stakeholder advisory board. The purpose of that board is to demonstrate local buy-in and also to kind of help us ensure strategic fit with local challenges. That board met on Monday, the 11th, just gone, They were broadly supportive of the plans that were put forward and shown to them, which again is appendix 2 with today's papers. And some of the suggestions they have made will be tied in and included within further refinement of the UK SPF draft investment plan. We've also got a meeting tomorrow with the Helping People Board, and again, their feedback in regards to the draft plan will be fed in to the refined version that will be submitted by the 1st of August. I think by way of summary, Chair, I think that's probably about it for this one. I'm happy to take questions once Councillor Binlos has added to what I've said.
Okay, thank you very much, Lee. I now invite Councillor Binlos, portfolio holder for Growth and Prosperity, to move the recommendation and provide any further introduction to the report.
Thank you, Chair. I think actually all of my items tonight were rather well read by everybody anyway tonight, which is rather difficult. And one finds oneself talking about things that, you know, we already know, but I will not be put off by that, and I will continue. So we know that, you know, this that the UK SPF was launched and £1.1 million was on the table, so to speak. The success, obviously, is due and only due if we are successful within that bid, and it's mindful to think about that. And that obviously we would know about in October. The fact that it's for 3 years. The first year is a very, very short window of 6 months from October. The second, obviously, a full year, and the third, clearly a full year as well. However, it doesn't just stop there, does it? Because we have 2 years, the first year and the second, or part of the first year and the second year, where they are quite small amounts in comparison to the third year. And one has to be aware of that, and I think be very, very careful as to how we actually develop that and actually make that into something that's workable, particularly given that you've got such a heavy loaded third year. We don't want to be falling off the edge of a cliff with things. We want things to move forward and progress, and I think that this is one of the tricks that we're going to have from the officers that are working very hard to make sure that that is the case. And if we are successful, then our fund will be successful as well. As we've heard from Lee, there are 3 priority areas. And I think you can see quite clearly the work that's been involved in that, certainly in Appendix 1 and also in the supplementary document. The UK SPF is an opportunity for the town and the borough to really benefit from. However, to ensure that we get it right and understand where the funding will be best used, we've held workshops, as we've already heard. We've had discussions with partners and stakeholders, and we've also, most importantly, been drawing information from the town centre vision document and other documents as well. And it's enabled us to produce the attached proposals for the development. We must, of course, be realistic and mindful as to the limitations that this amount of funding can be used for. It has to be said that there has been an element of confusion relating to the progression of the themes and proposed works within the submission. However, as we've said on many occasions, nothing is cast in stone, and this is still an evolving document. And it's still evolving now, and as you heard from Lee, tomorrow potentially as well. And it will continue to do so for the time being. The shape of our submission is born from the wishes, concerns and ideas of the residents of the borough, our partners and our stakeholders, whose input will ultimately develop and empower our borough and our town centre should we get this. I don't intend to go through the contents of the submission as it currently stands, as I'm sure we're all aware of that very well. But I believe it has some striking possibilities to help support the residents of our borough and to address and to help and to continue to develop the borough as well as the town centre. I just take this opportunity to thank all the officers that have been involved in this, Lee, Panali and all the team, because it has been a labour of love. It's hard work, and it's been quite unique, I think, in many respects, in that it has had many evolutions, really, even now, and it's going to likely have another couple. So I think with that, I would ask that we note the recommendation 2.1, supporting principle 2.2, and approve 2.3, members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. I'm happy to second 2.1.2.2.2.3. When you're a leader of a council, especially a council like this one, we are a small council. We all know that. And I've often asked my chief executive and suggested we're the 7th smallest, but I did see a chart the other day that indicated we could be the 4th smallest council certainly in England and maybe Wales as well. And of course, you do tend to look at the larger budgets of the larger councils and you think, well, if only. But one thing being leader and being a small council does give is flexibility. And when you think at the timescales that we've had on this one, this council has moved at an incredible pace, and congratulate all the officers. There's been a huge amount of work there going on. The engagement that's happened with members and stakeholders has been second to none. I can remember at the cabinet briefing, we talked about the engagement, and it looked virtually impossible, didn't it, at one point in time, but we've done it. And everyone seems to be happy with what they've been informed back. Certainly a massively positive feedback from the stakeholders, and that's coming through. And it's just good to support important local issues. We've talked about the cost of living tonight, tourism, town centre improvement, communities, cultural events, supporting young people and new businesses. Yeah, it's good. And like I say, just well done to everyone in the whole council who's really helped on this one. Now, as I understand, turn to Chief Executive, the final refinements are going to be undertaken now, aren't they? Over, and that runs up to when? August the 1st or what?
Yeah,
Can you
so
just confirm that, Ed?
So certainly, Leader, under section or recommendation 2.3, there's a delegation to enable myself and the portfolio holder to just refine any details in relation to the proposals based on the feedback to date. I don't think we'd envisage anything too substantial, but it just gives us a couple more weeks to do any further refinements prior to the submission deadline.
Thank you very much, Ed. Does any Malise?
Just really to agree with you so much about the engagement and the constructive way that this has been done. I was at the meeting on Monday, and it really was a really constructive meeting, came up with very good ideas. And from my point of view, it just showed how important it is to meet in person away from Zoom. I think a lot of those ideas would not have come forward if people had to stick their yellow hands up and said the thing. So I hope that not only will we be successful with this, but it'll be a start or renew our engagement with our stakeholders and various other people in a thoroughly constructive manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malise. Any other comments? If not, I ask you to, obviously, Rob's raised 2.1.2.2.2.3. I'll second it. All those in favour, please raise their hands. Unanimous, noted. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of today's cabinet meeting. It's certainly the longest agenda we've ever had, and there's been some big items that have been decided today. So congratulations to the cabinet. Congratulations to the officers who have been with us today, and anyone here on YouTube who's been watching us right from the start, right to the finish. Congratulations. I know it's working because I've had a few messages, would you believe, about asking queries. So it shows how well YouTube works. So, so thank you very much. End of meeting.